Welcome to the Inspiring Tech Leaders podcast with me, Dave Roberts. In this week's episode, I'm going to talk about cybersecurity and focus in on what is meant when we talk about the security by design principles. The number of breaches and cyber attacks are growing exponentially, with cyber attacks estimated to occur every 40 seconds. It is alleged that cyber-related crime cost the world over $1 trillion in 2020, and organizations are now spending between 20 to 25% more on cybersecurity in 2021. Unfortunately, there is no silver bullet to avoiding the risk of cyber attacks, but more rather a well-layered approach that involves technology, processes, and most importantly, people. People are often the weakest link and fall foul of social engineering attack techniques that can often bypass any perimeter security methods that we put in place. It is therefore important that we look at security by design principles when it comes to cybersecurity. But what are these security by design principles that you often hear people reference to? This was a question that came up on a recent podcast and has inspired me to create this new episode now. So it starts by understanding the architectural design of your services and systems. This helps to ensure that there are no hidden issues or blind spots that could be compromised. You should also classify data that is being stored, as some data may require enhanced security using multi-factor authentication methods. Systems should be designed to be resilient and scalable and should be able to account for denial of service attacks or increased traffic. It's important that you've got a good monitoring system in place that can understand and identify any suspicious activities and minimize the impact. If there is a breach, we need to make sure it's as difficult as possible to continue the exploit of the system. One of the most important design principles is that of least privilege. People or system accounts should only be given the privileges that they need to complete the necessary task. If a hacker is able to compromise a particular account, at least with privileged access in place, it will limit the access they have to other areas of the system and can limit the damage from the attack. From an application perspective, it's important to minimize the surface attack area, thinking about what information could be exposed with the introduction of a new feature or function. So reducing code to simplify an application can actually help reduce the number of potential entry points for unauthorized access. Simplified coding is another way of helping to reduce the complexity and make the QA and testing process more efficient in spotting issues. It is also good practice to ensure that you segment the network to limit access between systems and services. Open design is another important design principle that dispels that myth of there being security by obscurity. The security of an application should not be dependent on the secrecy of the design or code. If a system does fail, then it should do so in a secure manner and only grant access to the system if validation is approved. The default access to a system should be none, or default deny as it's known. It's important to minimize the use of third-party services that plug into your application or system as well. The third-party security measures may be less secure than your own, and this can open up vulnerabilities for a cyber attack. We shouldn't trust external data sources by default, as this may lead to denial of service attacks or data breaches. Ideally, there's going to be a multi-layered approach to security to validate access using techniques like multi-factor authentication, restricting by IP address, or using capture systems. Having controls in place to monitor login attempts and identify any brute force attacks is also important to help reduce the detection time of an attack. It's important to have a layered defense strategy. So if one layer is breached, there are still further layers of defense that will hopefully stop a full breach from occurring. This principle has been in practice for hundreds of years if you think about the design of medieval castles with their multi-layers of defense. We should also ensure that software is kept updated and patched and use the latest versions of software components when developing and maintaining applications. Cybersecurity is now a regular boardroom agenda item across most organizations. It's something that CEOs and CIOs have taken notice of. And as Technology CxOs, we all need to keep learning about this ever-changing cybersecurity landscape and the importance of good cybersecurity posture across our organizations. I hope you found this podcast interesting. It really has only touched on the surface of the subject of security by design, but hopefully gives you a good understanding and a good introduction to this critical area of technology. Please let me know what other technology topics you'd like to see covered in future episodes of the podcast. And remember to subscribe and stay tuned for more inspiring tech leaders.